Thank you for those in the chat who let me know that. So this is the title of the paper, and here's where we are. The Pokemon Company International, we have Pokemon Center, which is the official online store. We also host tournaments for the Pokemon trading card game. Our tech org, which sits inside TPCI, is responsible for a variety of things. So we have internal tools that we use to manage everything that I just talked about. We have the Pokemon Trainers Club, which is a authorization system for Pokemon properties, so you can log in at Pokemon.com. It also manages the Pokemon Go login and login for our trading card game online, which is a online version of the trading card game, which you can play. We are also working on an update to this called Pokemon Trading Card Game Live. We also have Pokemon TV, which is an online or a mobile and a web version of a way to watch the animated series and some of our other properties, tournament coverage, things like that. And then our quality organization, our product quality and insights team, is responsible for the care of all of those things that the tech org produces. So we span a wide variety of products and have to keep abreast of the development of all those products. And our mission is to provide best-in-class support for our partners and our fans. That talks to both sides of what we do. We're both development partners who are trying to, make the process of developing these things as good as it can be. And we are also trying to service our fans. So being able to deliver great experiences to the end customer. Our quality team sits side by side with our customer service team. So if there are problems with our that get out into the wild, our customer service team can come to our quality team and let us know exactly what those issues are. So that's just a little bit of how we're organized and what we do as a team. And we kind of guide our team based on make changes in our team based on proof of concepts. So what is a proof of concept? A proof of concept is a small proof of concepts have been around in engineering since the 1960s. They are widely used in engineering as a phase of development to show that something can be done, right? These are typically smaller than a prototype. Where a POC shows that something can be done, a prototype usually shows how something will be developed, or a prototype is developed enough to show how something will operate versus a POC showing that it just can exist, right? POCs are often more focused than prototypes because you're focusing on a specific idea or a problem. And POCs are about building the smallest model that you can before fully committing to a solution, right? So we try and see that what we are doing is achievable and will work once put into practice in the real world. I really like the quote on the bottom that it takes something that's hypothetical and puts it into the world so it can be interacted with. You can see how it works and that it achieves what you are trying to achieve. Now, traditionally, we see a lot of POCs for technical things, right? They're really common in engineering. Your organization may already do POCs for technical things. This could be onboarding a new tool or changing a process. It may involve lots of small experiments. You may see developers often will use a POC to do a refactor or try out a new technology. Cultural POCs for me were kind of a new thing that I experienced at TPCI. So when I came to TPCI, we had a stand-up for the quality team outside of our regular product teams, and it was unique, and it was done on a POC basis, right? To see how having a different type of stand-up for our quality team could impact our culture. So that stand-up, instead of people focusing on the work they were doing, what you did today, what's blocking you, what do you hope to achieve, instead of focusing on those progress of tasks, it focused on the people. It focused on 3 topics: reflections, goals, and announcements. So reflections are things that people learned either during work or even at home that were impactful for them. So, hey, we tried this thing yesterday and this worked really well. I just wanted to share that. Or, in talking with my kids yesterday, they brought up this thing that reminded me of this thing at work. And it gave us a window into how people were feeling and what they were valuing. Then we talk about goals. So what you hope to achieve that day, that week. So, today I'm focused on working on this new automation thing. So just kind of letting the team know what you're working on. And then there were, I have a goal this month to finish my paper for PNSQC. That'd be a type of thing that would come up at this quality team stand-up. And then there were announcements, right? Project changes. Hey, the timeline for this thing is shifting. Or that, we would have time off. I have an appointment. I have to be out of office for a little bit. Or, next week I'm going to be out of office for a week. So if you need something before then, come find me. And then company awareness type things. Hey, open enrollment for benefits is open. That POC of doing stand-up that way let us build a relationship for our quality team that even though we were all working on disparate products, our quality team felt very connected and very together in the quality work we were doing, right? We could talk about what we were learning as we were doing projects in these quick 15-minute stand-ups. Not everybody was nobody was forced to talk. It was always a voluntary action, but it gave us a real sense of community as a quality org inside the greater tech org at Pokemon. So culture POCs are different because they're talking about how a team behaves and how a team feels. That can make these cultural POCs harder to do because they are harder to, the measurements of what you're trying to achieve are harder, right? They can often be about things like improving morale or making an organization more flexible or able to adapt to the changes that are coming in or to be better organized for the future. And those cultural things aren't as tactile as the technical POCs. But if you set up, if you define your POCs in a common way and drive to those goals, they allow you to set a framework for evaluating if the changes are good, if the changes are bad, what's working and what's not inside your organization, which has a very, quality group feel in that you're evaluating the change and deciding if it's good or bad, which I really like for quality organizations. So defining a POC. So, these are the 5 things that I think need to be inside every POC. A description of what you're trying to demonstrate. This is typically, an elevator pitch. A purpose, why is this change important? What does this change? The timeliness and the timeline for it. So how long will it take? When should this be started? Is it time critical? And how will you know when you're done? Right. I think one of the challenges with POCs is they can sometimes go on for a long time and past where they're just proving out the concept and they are now a project of on their own. So being kind of strict in shrinking down the POC to just what you're hoping to achieve. Then I like to have a number of hypotheses in a POC. What do you think will happen, right? Hypotheses are simply, I expect by doing A that we will see B happen. And then how are you going to measure those hypotheses at the end, right? A good example of that is we will measure the time it takes to do something. We'll make a change. Then we'll measure the amount of time it takes to do that same thing again and see what the delta is, right? That's a good measure of something technical, but you can also apply that to teamwork. So we do enough POCs at TPCI that we decided to template those steps, right? So for every POC that our group does, somebody is expected to fill out this template and post it on our wiki. You see all the things I talked about in the previous slide around defining a POC, but we also have just kind of going down the list. We name it. Hopefully this is something pithy, but often naming things is hard. We all know this, but something that we can all refer to the POC by. Then a lightweight description of what it is and why it's important. The purpose, why do you want to do it? What do you hope to get out of it? The length of the POC, and then your hypotheses and how you're going to measure them. And then at the end, after we run a POC, what did we learn, right? And one of the reasons we have this templated and placed on our wiki is so that everybody can go and review, hey, what have we tried before, right? I've got this new idea. Has somebody tried this here at Pokemon? If they did, what did they learn? If they did somebody try something similar and it not work or not work how we expected it to? And then we can have this archive of these that really lets us look back and say, oh, this worked really well. Oh, this didn't work at all. What else can we do, right? So a little bit about approving and choosing POCs. So when do we know we should work on them, and how do we choose which ones we work on when, right? First, we kind of evaluate the POCs as a group. So, we'll leave comments on the wiki. We'll talk about what's written there and what doesn't work. So I have somebody has a question. Was it difficult to assign the owner to the POC wiki? So our wiki is just a wiki that the entire group owns, but the owner of each POC is actually the author of the POC, right? They're going to be the ones responsible for driving the POC once we decide to embark on it. We decide when to do it kind of by prioritizing which ones we need to do. What's the impact of that POC? What's the relevance? So is this something that has to be done now, or is it something that we can change or wait on until a later date? does it already have momentum, right? We're working on this project, and this POC is related to this project for this time frame. Is it something we can start doing right now, right? So I'm going to walk through a couple examples of POCs that we've run in the past. One's technical and one's more cultural, and talk about what the POC was, if it was successful, and what we learned out of it and what changes came because of it, right? So the first one is bringing Mabel into TPCI. So the way we did this was we worked with the Mabel team to get an evaluation period with them, and then we chose a small project. So we chose the HTML5 version of the PTV Pokemon TV app. This let us, the purpose of this POC was to evaluate if Mabel could help us in places we didn't already have automation. We chose the project because it was small and self-contained, and it let us evaluate both the setup of Mabel, the authoring of tests, and how long it took to do the equivalent testing that we were currently doing manually through automation. So the hypothesis was coming in that yes, Mabel would help us a lot and reduce the number of test cases that we had to run manually. What we really wanted to see was, would Mabel be able to alert us to changes that we would find manually, and that the coverage would remain just as high, right? So we ran this POC for 3 months. We originally estimated it would take a month. Why did that test frame grow, or that timeline grow? Was dealing with Mabel and getting it set up internally took a little longer than we thought. Starting projects is always hard. And we didn't have dedicated resources just to running this POC. This POC was run with people doing other things. Some of our SDETs who were working on other projects, and we wanted to do a thorough evaluation, so we needed to wait until they had time to do those evaluations. We evaluated it with SDETs who were already familiar with doing UI automation for the web with Selenium, and we evaluated it. As they evaluated it, they said, yes, this will do everything that we currently need it to do. For Selenium, it was, there's places where it has gaps, but we can cover those gaps in other ways. And we decided that the value of the tool was big enough to bring it in. So since we ran this POC, we did onboard Mabel as a tool inside TPCI. And while we originally thought it would have, we knew we'd use it for Pokemon.com. We've expanded its use to things like the Pokemon Center, as well as our launch sites for projects. So when we do a project like the upcoming Switch releases of games, we went ahead and released, we started using Mabel on those as well, instead of using Selenium, because it was adaptable enough for us, right? So that's a pretty typical example of a POC. But we did apply the template and go through exactly that process to learn if Mabel was good enough for us, and it became a tool that we use daily across the team. The second POC I want to talk about is Agile Strike Teams. So inside our entire tech org, we are in a agile. Well, I would still say we're in an agile transition. Most teams are trying to be agile, but are running into some roadblocks. And our quality team, after doing some training around Scrum Master training and having some people go through the product owner training, we decided that we as a group wanted to do more, to really invest in agile and see if we could run an agile team inside the quality org and have an impact and be more impactful than the traditional way that we had been operating, right? And that doing the kind of Scrum butt, half Scrum, more waterfall approach, right? So, as you see, the purpose there, it was to implement a strict agile team at TPCI and use that team on a high need area. So we picked a project that was, we called it the ART project. It was the automated regression testing project. And so it was to take a group of cases from Pokemon.com and actually implement those, but we were going to follow a strict Scrum process. So we'd own the backlog. We'd have a PO who was a product owner, PO who was working with our stakeholders, and we would dedicate some development resources. So we had a software test engineer and a couple of developer engineers in test dedicated to the team. We had a dedicated Scrum Master to this, and the measurements we used were a comparative analysis between teams that weren't doing Scrum doing similar tasks to this team that was doing Scrum, right? So we proposed it as a 4-month evaluation so that we could get a number of sprints under the team's belt. We knew that team was going to have to form and then kind of stabilize to be able to show a good record. And so we set off on this journey. What happened was the team created an outstanding amount of automation in that 4 months. They were on par with things that were taking 6, 8, 12 months in other parts of the organization that weren't being done in a strictly agile process. The communication inside that team was excellent. And they delivered meaningful work each sprint, which was one of our big measurements, right? Instead of having to wait till the end of a milestone or to get a presentation of something for feedback, because they were doing 2-week sprints and doing a stakeholder review every milestone, we saw that work often. It was able to be reprioritized and contribute to their planning sessions, and then develop, alter their plan and truly be an agile team. Organizationally, throughout the tech org, this team was seen as very predictable and delivering great results. Not that all, the rest of our teams don't deliver great results, but it did show that this team continues to be thought of as a high performing team. This team, after the POC, has actually mostly stayed together. They've been dedicated to different projects, so they've been able to transfer off that project for Pokemon.com and have switched over to a team working with our internal studio and have been able to deliver great results there. They found that one of the things that has become a new POC was integrating other disciplines outside of quality into that team, and divorcing them from kind of their, namely this was with DevOps, and they've integrated 2 DevOps engineers into their agile team and are able to show that by working in that way, those DevOps tickets that may used to have wait for their backlog to be able to process them, this team is just able to be more agile and get more things done by integrating other disciplines into their teams. I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions. Melody, I hope these kind of showed the differences in the way I think about these. And then I have a question from Ying. Are there efforts that are too complex to be considered good fits for POCs? I think you need to scope your POCs appropriately, right? So I like to scope, if we can scope things down to a single problem for a POC to tackle. That's much better than trying to say, like we wouldn't try from this example, a POC wouldn't be. I don't think it would be appropriate to do a POC of we're going to transform the entire technology org's approach to agile in a POC. That's just too big and complex to try and tackle. But being able to break off just the quality part and say we're going to approach this from a strict agile methodology and see if it works, right? And see what type of impact it has. I would say this is probably on the border of being too large to be effective as a POC, but I really think it worked well and helped us demonstrate that yes, if we commit the resources to doing this, we can be effective. We've seen other teams now start to model the same behaviors by doing agile in a very strict way, and those teams have also been successful. I don't think this is surprising to anyone, but having the proof that the concept works, right, which is exactly what you want a POC to achieve, is very valuable throughout the org. So a couple things about the long-term effects of doing POCs inside our org. We've done more than 40 we've had more than 40 POC proposals since we started this process in 2018. You can see some of the different things we've tried. Organizational structures, a big one right now. We're talking about piloting some different roles inside the quality org, seeing if moving a product ownership role inside the quality org could help drive both some agile mentality as well as some effectiveness for our working structures, which are called pods. And the POC process really is giving the team, the quality team, ownership over their work, right? If you look at something inside our organization and you decide, hey, I think this would work better, there's a process to make that change. And I don't think that exists everywhere. And giving the team that ability to really drive making the changes that they want to make is super helpful and valuable for a team. And it really, thinking back to the last presenter, Heather's ending remarks around their culture, it definitely drives to job satisfaction. I think it helps with retention because you can change the org if you don't like how things are. And then the POC process really doesn't only give us the framework for proposing that change, but evaluating that change and making those changes that are meaningful, right? So that has been, to me, that is one of the biggest values that we have in our quality organization, is that we have that ownership and we have the ability to drive that. I'd love to take any other questions that we have. Just a couple notes as we're wrapping up. The Pokemon Company International is hiring. You can see our jobs there at that link on LinkedIn. And I really want to thank a bunch of people for helping me be able to make this presentation. All the editors who I worked with at PNSQC, did nothing but make the paper better and this presentation better. I really want to thank TPCI for allowing us to be able to do this presentation, and our product quality and insights team, right? Because they gave me the ability to work on this presentation as well as the work I've been doing. So Jessica Fryer says, what happens when a POC's hypothesis has been shown not to be true? I have an example of that in the paper where we had a POC where we talked about creating a new channel in Slack for doing specific announcements. We found we tried it with a smaller group of people on our steering committee, and we decided it was too noisy. Right? It was there were two problems with the hypothesis. We thought that by putting all of that communication in a single channel, it'd be easier to find, and wouldn't. But what happened was people just started ignoring the channel because it became too noisy. So what we did is refined that POC to add some automatic announcements inside an existing channel of things that we really wanted brought to people's attention, work anniversaries, the launch of products, things like that, birthdays, right? Things that we were tying both work things and personal things into our culture together, and that was so you can do one of two things. You can just document the fact that, hey, we thought that this was it's like any other experiment in science, right? We think this is going to happen. It doesn't. Now we reflect and see what we learned. Is there something else we want to try? Is just the information of, we tried this thing, we thought this was going to happen and it didn't, is still valuable to come up with through the POC process. I one of the things I always like to remember is that my degree is in computer science, and so if I'm not trying and failing things, I'm probably not doing science. Are there other questions out there?
I think the time is coming to an end, Paul, and we really appreciate your effort in creating the presentation as well as the paper, and the good work that you've done doing the paper review process that really has made for a very interesting presentation. I think the proof of concepts approach that Pokemon use, like a lot of high-tech companies, is an integral part of R&D and product development. I'm glad that you have a chance to speak to us all today. Thank you for your time, and have a nice day, and we'll have more chance to chat in the future. And I apologize again about the confusion at the beginning of this session. I will make sure it doesn't happen again. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you, Ying, and thank you everyone for attending. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and I'll see you around. I'll look to get out a hallway conversation for those who want to. Oh yeah, and I don't have the survey links. Ying, can you post those into the chat?
Yes, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.